Hi, this is Derek McCaw, but you knew that. I am here via StreamYard with A. David Lewis, who is a longtime comics writer, comics creator, and thank you for coming on this morning. You got to be the focus of a Fanboy Planet article, I guess, at the beginning of the week. Of course, time means nothing these days. I don't remember if it was a month ago or just a few days ago.
I saw it in the time stream somewhere. It definitely populated the time stream and flew by. But no, I really appreciated the article. Thank you.
Yeah, we were talking about that you are writing. It's an interesting crowdsourcing model, and I don't know if anybody else is doing this. You are writing volume 2 of Kismet, Man of Fate. Volume 1 came out 2 years ago from Wave Blue World, and then volume 2 is Patreon. If you support, it's a pay-as-you-go model, and I love this in these times. So just for anybody tuning in and hasn't read the article, that you're having people pledge so that you are paying the artists for the work up front. You're not taking any of this money.
No, I don't take any cut at all.
You are paying for using the Patreon to pay page by page for production of this graphic novel. And I mean, it's a straight up graphic novel. Yeah.
Production's the right word though, because this is all already written. This is all already scripted. I worked with editor Joe Illidge at A Wave Blue World. He's with Heavy Metal now. And we took almost a year putting together this plot, revising it, massaging it. So the script is done. And when the COVID-19 pandemic hit, every company had to make a whole bunch of business decisions. One of the decisions that A Wave Blue World and I arrived at is that probably volume 2 wouldn't be produced by them. And that was okay, no hard feelings. But I still had this script, and it wasn't so much a matter of ego. There's any number of things I've written that have been put in the desk drawer afterward, but I thought this script was important for the moment. I also thought this story was something that I wanted to do with my continuing art team, who had this lined up and who do receive fair wages for it. And I thought, well, why not? Why don't I go back to my self-publishing roots now in the 21st century instead of the end of the 20th? Why not revive my imprint, Caption Box, and see if there is a taste for this, a hunger for it. But I knew that we were in the middle of the pandemic. I knew people were being laid off. I knew people's futures were uncertain. So I did not want to go the Kickstarter or Indiegogo route. Nothing wrong with them, but I knew that there would be a sizable price tag on this. And I wanted people to feel they could take part without having to seriously cash in. And so that's why I struck upon Patreon. I was already familiar with Patreon because I support some artists there already, some friends and some people that I admire. But I thought to myself that I can be the public face of this if I am accruing monthly funds for my artists to continue with this story. I wasn't under any time limit to get this out by a certain season or by the holidays or by the end of the third quarter. I just thought that going the Patreon route would let many hands do light work, keep the Kismet story unfolding. Volume 1 is self-contained, but I did leave intentional threads so that we could do a volume 2, and let people contribute in a way that's frankly affordable and kind of humane. I don't know if anyone's gone this route before, Derek. They may well have, so I'm not claiming in anywhere to be a pioneer, but I don't think it's been popularized. I don't have any personal experience with anyone that's gone in that direction. So here we're at it. Caption Box is at it with volume 2 of Kismet.
I think there are cartoonists perhaps that have like bonus things that unlock with their Patreon, and certainly video has done that, and musicians do. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it is interesting, and And just again, let's backdrop for people that maybe aren't familiar with Kismet. It was the character was a golden age hero, the one that we could point to just because of its setting as most likely the first Muslim superhero, if you will.
That's right. Yeah.
And because he's kind of an orphan, as the publisher disappeared, he became public domain. So
yeah, that's right. It was Gilberton and then Elliot, or maybe vice versa, that ran Bomber Comics. Their most famous, their biggest claim to fame is Classics Illustrated. And even though Classics Illustrated wasn't necessarily left in the public domain, the rest of their titles largely were. We think that the SM Eiger studio was the one that produced Bomber Comics. That used to be the Eiger studio. And further research suggests that not only was Kismet the first full-fledged Muslim superhero, he was probably written by Ruth Roach, a famous female writer of the time in this huge boys club. So there was a lot of things that attracted me to the character. I was originally introduced to him because I was just doing research on Muslim superheroes. I wasn't seeking out and rummaging around in the public domain space. But when I learned about him, when I read the stories that they did, they only got to produce 4 stories with this character.
Mm-hmm.
I was really enchanted, and it sort of took over, moved from the academic side of my mind to the creative side of my mind. What could be done with this character, not only in the World War II setting, but in the modern setting, in a day and age where America is looking at pseudo or proto-fascism again. So it was an exciting and maybe serendipitous character to find.
Yeah, and what you did with him, to me, is, I think I wrote, that he fought fascists, and what is different is that now you brought him into the modern age, and he has hope for democracy, and
Yep.
and that he makes a choice early on. So it's not a spoiler in Volume 1. That he's going to turn his back on traditional superheroing, if you will. Did I just coin a verb that's awkward to say?
Superheroing.
But very few heroes in comic stories do this. And I was thinking, well, the parallel sort of to me was maybe Starman, the James Robinson run, but that was the end of that entire story. For you, it's the beginning of the story, and this hope that that we're all the heroes. He becomes the community organizer to some extent, and I felt echoes of maybe the last of Barack Obama, but Obama's origins. I mean, because that was the pejorative they used to give. He was just a community organizer,
right?
And no, there's power in us, the people, and it's a good reminder there. Very strong. And as we were talking earlier, when rereading, how tied in. I mean, it's it feels prescient reading it for 2018 because of all the real world fears that you put in there. Yeah. So now we've left him in 2018. You've got this script done, and it feels like every day, every couple of hours, I check the news and suddenly something new and outrageous has happened. How, with this model, are you going to stay, let me put it in lack of any other better term, relevant to what's going on when that first book felt so now?
Well, first of all, thank you. I take that as a big compliment that you found it connective. The issues that have been exacerbated by the current administration, by large portions of our population, are not new. I mean, they're age old. They've been with the U.S. since its inception. Really, it's just their expression and their awareness that I think is making them more front and center. So I do have the benefit of scripting ahead of Kismet's time. That is to say, this next volume will take us into 2018, 2019, 2020, and I know what's going to happen. I have Kismet's foresights, right? His His only super ability, realistically, is the ability to just glimpse ever so slightly into the future. But as how to stay relevant, there's really only two things that are going to happen next at the time that we're recording this, and that is Donald Trump is going to stay in office by hook or by crook, or Donald Trump is not going to stay in office, and a Democratic administration is going to have to deal with not only the aftermath of his administration, but also his base will still exist. It's not just Trump's base. It's a movement, a small one, but a significant one in America. Certainly one that I don't endorse or support. So, whenever Volume 2 comes out, whether it's 2 years from now, whether it's 5 years from now, there are still going to be issues with prejudice. There's still going to be issues with domestic and police violence. There's still going to be issues with Islamophobia. There's still going to be issues with LGBTQ identity. So what I saw with Kismet when I first found the character in the public domain, and it remains true even now, even though COVID has changed so many circumstances and this election cycle has jeopardized so many things, this is a character whose progressive Muslim views, I think, can still say and do a great deal really anytime in either what we're calling modernity or postmodernity in this current generation of U.S. experience. So I don't feel a threat about falling out of sync. I also have some magic I can use at the end of the story to fast forward things along if I want to. Sorry if that thing. Yeah, I have some magic I can use if I really need to employ a narrative device to speed things along. But I don't see that as a real threat or jeopardy. It's like asking if Watchmen is at all relevant, because, yeah, Afghanistan is still relevant. Vietnam, as its place in our history, is still relevant. Nuclear threat is still relevant, even if it's set in the 80s. So I am not saying Kismet is as good as Watchmen. I am not saying Kismet is like Watchmen. I'm only saying that Kismet doesn't have any anxiety to it about staying timely or timeless.
Well, and to the advantage, it reminds me in some ways, as you're talking about this, it's like Aaron Sorkin's The Newsroom. You have hindsight is 2020 to a large extent, and sometimes when you bring up Watchmen, sometimes it makes people feel more comfortable that there's a little distance from it.
Yes.
When Watchmen's in 1985, although the miniseries on HBO was 2019, but so to say, okay, 2018 or 2019, I'm excited to read what the viewpoint is on that. And okay, so you sold me. I'm good with this, and we'll say, oh, isn't it great we got through that time? And it's too bad we didn't have a Kismet to inspire to some extent,
Yeah.
And that's it. So you are reviving Caption Box, and because as we're talking, I believe it was Mortal Coils, Lone and Level Sands. Some of your work has been picked up by Archaea.
Mm-hmm.
You've always been a very eclectic writer to me, but also one who, like J.M. DeMatteis, you always kind of know what the A. David Lewis concerns are. Your
A. David Lewis. It's always overwritten, and it's always hyper academic, even if I'm trying to couch it in something adventurous. I always.
All right, if you want to put it that way, I wasn't going to. No, but your heart always comes through, and that's it. So, but with Caption Box, and again with These Are the Times, is when you finish Kismet, will Caption Box stay viable, valid, and you have plans for what you would do after this?
I do. In fact, I mean, the only reason I transitioned Caption Box out at all is that I was moving away from being a self-publisher to being a writer for publishers. But Caption Box, it was always that doing business as in the contract. Caption Box has always been my imprint, even if it wasn't showing up specifically on the label. Volume 1 of Kismet was basically the same way that Iger made Bomber comics for another company, Caption Box is making comics for other companies. But now there is the possibility that I'll return with Caption Box to self-publishing, or make it an official imprint underneath a larger publisher. I am already talking with one of my former collaborators, MP Man, Marv Man, and I worked on Lone and Level Sands and Some New Kind of Slaughter. Some New Kind of Slaughter, yeah, I can still say it. Together, we have some ideas about what we want to do next. I have a post-apocalyptic story that I've never tried before that I would put myself behind if no one else steps up. So again, maybe going back to the theme with Kismet, I don't have an anxiety over how is this going to get out? Who's going to publish this? What's the market share going to be like? I create the things first, or I propose creating the things, and then they latch on with someone. And I feel like that is the, if not the purest, then at least the most honest way to make these stories.
I'll take that. Okay.
Thanks.
What right now?
Yes.
What gives you hope?
My children. My children give me hope right now. They're living through this pandemic with a grace that I can't really imagine. They're finding ways. They still find joy in things. They're still taking delight in the everyday things. And while the adults panic, they are still brilliant, and they're still heartwarming. Outside of my own immediate family, my own gene pool, I'll say this. I mean, this is the dark silver lining of this all. We have seen the Fourth Estate journalism step up in a way that it probably hasn't had to since Watergate. We have seen the American institutions stress tested, but they haven't broken yet. I think that's what's getting everyone so alarmed about the imminent election and about the U.S. Post Office being under threat, that could break the system. It's been abused and it's been damaged, but my hope punk philosophy here is that it's not irreparable yet. So that in itself gives me hope. Finally, all of the rallies and protests have been so energetic, peaceful, deliberate, intelligent, that to see that, to take my kids to that, and I mean to do it in a responsible manner, to do it with masks on, to do it in a safe environment, to do it with permits and such, they're getting to experience something that my sheltered cisgender male white suburban experience growing up was never infused with, and I had to look for, or learn to look for, with that privilege much later in life. They're getting an education now that I don't know that I'm envious of it, but I am certainly, again, going back to my original point, amazed by how they're incorporating it so beautifully as they still play Nintendo.
So, David, thank you for taking the time. I know you're busy. I'm glad we could join in this. And once again, to everyone watching this, it's Kismet, Man of Fate. I believe available. Volume 1 is still available through Amazon, which I do always have to say that we are affiliated. So any purchase you make on Amazon through Fanboy Planet may result in revenue for us, but as well. The Patreon link, and I will add this in, the link to the article, which has the link to Patreon so that people can join. So thank you again.
Thank you, Derek. Always great to be back and talking with you.
Thanks for watching. Hit the subscribe button to make sure you don't miss out on any Fanboy Planet videos. And remember, use your powers for good.